affair. Because it captures our brain in ways that most other species don't. The story of wolves being restored to Colorado, if assembled well and told well, will be much bigger than Colorado, of course. It will say a great deal about who we are as individuals, who we are as a country, and what we can become. The story, I think, if assembled well and told well, will expose a new way of relating to nature. A new way that says we need to end the needless destruction of the natural world. That's critically important. If we imagine a future that includes peace, prosperity, and justice for more of human and non-human life, that's pretty clear. We can't go on degrading the planet endlessly. So here's what happens. The wolf's howl is primal, and it's loud, and it's attractive. It's very good at galvanizing attention and collecting opinion. And restoration? Restoration is seductive. So imagine what happens when you stitch the two together. You take the gray wolf and you take restoration, you stitch it together. You end up with a lens that's ideal for examining a new relationship with one another and a new relationship with Mother Earth. And this relationship has never been more sorely needed than right now today. Y'all probably know that the sixth great extinction crisis grows worse by the day. And when you think about that crisis, imagine there's only been 5 such events along the long sweep of time where the planet has supported multicellular life. Let's say that extends across 400 million years. Across those 400 million years, there have been 5 other extinction crises. The 5th, precipitated by an asteroid that slammed into the planet off what is now the coast of Yucatan. That asteroid ended the supremely successful reign of the dinosaur. The 6th crisis began, oh boy, in earnest, in the late 1700s with the eruption of the Industrial Revolution. It's been gaining momentum every day since. And if you think about the extinction crisis, no matter who you are, it should matter. Let's assume for a moment that you're a person of faith. I would assume that if you love the Creator, you have to love the creation. And if you love the creation, how can you stand by idly and watch it needlessly destroyed? Or let's assume for a moment that you're a secular humanist, and you believe that above all else it's facts and data and logic and empiricism that matter. Well, gee whiz, the best science tells us that it's the health of local landscapes around the world that has always been the sweet spot for humanity, and it will always be the sweet spot. Gray wolf restoration is this great lens. The story of the wolf's return to Colorado will make it easy for us to make clear that restoration is an alternative to extinction. Tom and I really hope that you will join us and the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project in assembling this story and telling it over and over and over again. So that I think is all the prepared comments we have. The third film we're saving for Friday at noon. We're at the 12-minute, 33-second mark. So we've got time for questions, or we could stand down and put this whole program back on schedule. Yes?
Just by way of a comment, the wolves have reintroduced themselves in California already. But the question I ask, I think, and maybe it's a stupid question, but I mean, given that you would have an availability of, say, a pair or breeding wolves, why is there some mandate that prohibits your reintroduction? Is it because the original historic agriculturalists have said that it's prohibitive to have them here without a change in the law? I'm expressing my ignorance.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. First and foremost, know that some wolves have wandered into California, but there is by no means a population. So you're absolutely right. They're finding their way to that great state, but a wolf here and there does not a population make. And ultimately, ecologically, biologically, spiritually, what we're after is a population that itself is viable. There's plenty of legal foundation for moving forward with a wolf program in Colorado. There's a state endangered species law that would call for this action. There's a federal Endangered Species Act that calls for this action. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service seems strongly inclined to do nothing, and it's highly likely that the state government in Colorado would also choose not to go forward on their own. We have to build momentum to move either the federal government to action or the state of Colorado to action. But the legal framework's well in place. Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really inspiring. I'm going to ask you a question, and two questions that I've been holding on to about bringing back the wolves and bringing back some other species. The first one is we have an area along the Front Range that has a number of endangered species. It's an area that's reclaiming naturally. It's a river area and a floodplain. And the endangered species are coming back amazingly. It's beautiful now.
Yeah.
Every January and February, we hear the wolf. And I've seen the wolf twice. And this is right along the Front Range. Do we work with you, because it's an indication of exactly what you said. Habitat restoration is an alternative to extinction.
Yeah, please understand, guys, the gray wolf doesn't need the habitat restored. It's already in place. The gray wolf is one of the world's great ecological generalists. It's not a habitat specialist. So while some species do need us to work from the bottom up, the gray wolf really requires support from the top down.
But the fear that communities have.
But go back to a point you made. All due respect, I strongly suggest that you're listening to coyotes and hearing coyotes. There is no evidence that there are gray wolves in Colorado in any numbers. Fair enough. You need to come to Ted Turner's Findy Ranch. We'll go look at gray wolves and we'll confirm.
No,
but anyway.
I live with coyotes every night.
Anyway, that's
then
great.
Then the next question, it is a wolf. I've seen it twice.
Oh, okay, well,
and
a wolf.
A singular.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
That's exciting.
I don't even know if we talk about it. You know, do we just stay quiet about it? I really want to know how to handle that information. The whole community wants to know.
I'd be as quiet as I could and just enjoy it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. That's why I didn't mention the location, by the way. The other thing is a very good friend of mine is the vice president of a company that they do genetic analysis, and they do prime horses and cows, but they're also looking at bringing us back to more original genetic blueprints in some of the species, bringing back the species, helping them recover. Is that something is that a place we want to go or not?
There's a movement afoot. It's called the de-extinction movement. And you could conceivably, theoretically, you can recreate the passenger pigeon.
Right.
Team Turner, and I'm so proud to be a member of Team Turner. John Seidel's here, most important member. Sally's an important member. We think there are so many contemporary pressing issues right in front of us. We don't have to reach back and try to restore the woolly mammoth through interesting technological advancements with advanced genomics. But, gee whiz, lots of things can be done. The question remains, should they be? And we're busy with species that haven't yet gone the way of the passenger pigeon. But thank you for your question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. About a year ago, I think, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Office proactively passed a resolution that was anti-wolf. I just thought I'd let people know that because, they went out of their way to do that. It was largely symbolic, but I'm curious if you remembered that or knew the decisions behind it and what we might do to help change their minds about that.
It was the commission that oversees parks and wildlife in the state that passed that resolution, standing in opposition to wolf reintroductions and standing in firm opposition to any work in Colorado with the Mexican wolf, Canis lupus belii. There is some wisdom that the Mexican wolf doesn't fit Colorado. I think that wisdom is very thin and flimsy, but nonetheless, let's forget the Mexican wolf for a moment. What the state of Colorado does have on the books is a very good wolf management plan. It says a lot of very good things. It's been in place for many years. It was developed by a bipartisan team that came together and wrote, here's what Colorado will do on behalf of the gray wolf if they arrive naturally. The state somehow has firewalled the notion that natural recolonization is okay, purposeful restoration through reintroductions is not. It's an odd bifurcation of the whole notion of restoring the balance of western Colorado. Moreover, please understand that if you embrace the idea of natural recolonization, as long as the gray wolf remains fully endangered as protected under federal law, Coloradans have virtually no options for management. The way that federal law is written, an endangered species shows up, your hands are largely tied. If the state were to embrace a proactive approach to restore the gray wolf through reintroductions, for example, now all of a sudden the floodgates of management are opened to ensure that you can put in place a wolf program that is mindful of the needs and concerns of local folks. And I promise you folks, having done this for 4 decades, gray wolves are not difficult to manage in the field. They're not subtle. They always evolved as the big dog on the block. They're easy to understand. The conflicts are easy to resolve if you have management latitude. It would be fairly easy for us to develop a restoration plan for Colorado that, if implemented well, was respectful of the needs and concerns of local citizens. So there's great wisdom in being proactive, and the state's halfway there with this very progressive, appropriate state management plan that celebrates natural recolonization but stands in opposition to reintroductions. And I'll say one last thing on this point. The prospects of gray wolves coming to occupy the state as a viable population through natural recolonization is virtually zero. It's zero in part because of the distance to the northern Rockies, and most importantly probably, Wyoming just gained authority to manage the gray wolf in that state under state authority, and they have decided, and it's their right to decide, that the gray wolf across about 85% of Wyoming will be managed as a predatory species, which means they can be shot on site any time of the day or night, any time of the year, in any numbers, and left in the field. So it's highly unlikely that there's going to be enough wolves coming from the north to the south to get the job done in Colorado. Coloradans have to rise up, and say, we want wolves to be part of our future on purpose. Well, there you go, that works. That works, that's very nice. Yeah.
So, quick question, I don't need a mic. As an aside, when I was a teenager,
I don't think they can record you without the mic. Although I could repeat the question, that might be simpler. But far be it from me to upset the apple cart.
So as a quick aside, when I was a teenager, I worked as a ranger at a scout camp that was near Turner's Ranch in New Mexico. It was really interesting to learn about some of the work they were doing there, including, I think, with the bison. My question is that, it's the classic follow the money question. It seems like most people in this room, myself included, believe that this is a critical effort and that support you. And I'm not a hypocrite about it. I live in Northern California. I want great whites in the ocean. I like knowing that when I'm out on a mountain bike ride, there are cougars in the woods. And if you have predators like cougars, you got to do smart things. You really can't leave your chihuahua out at night.
Yes.
But I don't want to live in a state where we exterminate our cougars. We lost our grizzlies, and I wish we hadn't.
Yeah. It's your state animal, I believe. It's on your flag.
It is. His name is Monarch. Last one was shot, I think, in the 1940s.
Yeah.
I'd love to get him back. So my question to you, though, is I'm assuming that the people who fund the regulations that are anti-wolf are primarily ranchers. Now, I buy beef. I enjoy eating meat. I buy from a rancher up in Point Reyes, and I buy from one near Paso Robles. If I knew that one of those guys was poisoning cougars or was actively funding legislation to wipe out habitat, especially on public lands where they're grazing on my land, not their land, I would not buy their product. When I look at this situation, it reminds me a lot of how we've gone to dolphin-safe tuna. So dolphin's a predator, it eats fish, but as consumers, we've told industry, we don't want to buy your product if in the course of making your product, you kill off species that are important to us, as they all should be. Is there any effort to go to the ranchers and say, we want you to put a wolf-safe sticker, and we want you to stop lobbying the State House for anti-wolf? Can you get some of the ranchers on board, or can you tell me whose product I shouldn't buy? Because I don't want to buy beef from a rancher who's grazing on my public lands and poisoning American species, or advocating for the extermination of species that were here before we were.
Thank you for the question. First and foremost, no, it's very difficult in this country to know where your food comes from. That's a problem. Y'all probably know the average bite of food travels about 2,000 miles from the point of production to the point of consumption. That's a problem. But not all ranchers are anti-wolf. Many ranchers are very wise, accommodating people capable of embracing change. There's been chronic efforts over decades to build predator-friendly products from the ranching community. Now, many ranchers in Colorado will rise up and say, oh, this is not a big deal. They'll recognize the truth. The truth is, you know anything about wolves and livestock? Wolves aren't a problem for the industry. It's the atypical wolf that depredates on livestock. And when they do cause a problem, the problems are easy to resolve. If you can back up resolution with compensation and make the rancher whole, there's wisdom to that. It's worked elsewhere in the northern Rocky Mountains. The sun still rises in the east and sets in the west for ranchers in Montana. So there's ways around these problems. You can put it this way, because we've got now 29, 28, 27 seconds left. I'll leave you with this thought. We together can put a man on the moon and bring him back. Could put a woman on the moon and bring her back. We can take your heart out of your chest and put it back better than before. I promise you we can coexist with the gray wolf. Thank you very much.